Welcome to Fish Tank Live, presented by Van Horn Law Group and CasaBella Design Group. Seth Levitt here live from the CasaBella Design Group studios, and I'm joined by the only live podcaster to bowl a perfect game and lead the NFL in receptions. He is OJ McDuffie. Juice, it's been a rough week, man.
Hey, man, big facts, though, man. Big facts. That would have started the show off, man. You know what I mean? With all the positive shit that we have in our lives. You know,
YouTube it. Look it up.
You know, had it, and we had that. But, yeah, been a rough week. For me especially, you know, man, I got weekend teams, though, Big Seth. You know what I mean? If all else fails, I can't go 0-3 on the weekend. So my high school team won on Friday, and, of course, my college and pro teams, you know, they took a shit Saturday and Sunday.
Thank goodness for Hawkins, right?
Yeah, the Hawk and Hawks, baby. Big ups to Hawk and Hawks, man. Our quarterback is, I don't know if you guys remember this guy, but our quarterback's name is Donovan Moorhead. His dad is Joe Moorhead. You know, he's been around the league. He's coaching at Akron right now. Remember, I was trying to get JT to see if he had any more years left in eligibility to go back there, man. But his son is ripping it, man, averaging about 370 yards a game. Yeah, he's on point, man. So I can't wait to go. See, I might end up going to see them in the playoffs if the rest of my teams keep fucking up. You know,
whoever's still balling. Yeah, that's why I ride those Piper Bengals
right,
too.
Man.
So I totally get it. Totally get it. Well, listen, as always, even though you can't see him right now, we are joined by our producer, the legendary Sevach, back in the Fish Tank Live from an absence that was too long, in my opinion. Too long. We certainly missed him in the Van Horn Law Group legal zone, but he is Sun Sentinel columnist, South Florida Sun Sentinel columnist, host of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. He is Chris Perkins, so you can follow him at Chris Perk. You know what I love, Perk? When you just wake up one day and you're like, I'm going to spend the next 2 hours just going off on Twitter, sending your questions and all that. But we're thrilled to have you back, my man. And, of course, as always, the heart and soul of Van Horn Law Group, our guy Chad Van Horn, or if you're on an international flight, a guy known as, aren't you that guy from the show? So Chad Van Horn, he's back here as well. It's all smiles right now, fellas, which some people might be pissed off. The OJ McDuffie tone check might be, look, I don't know what we're smiling about.
Right.
The Dolphins dropped the 1-4, blew a lead. I don't have to rehash all that. We're already at Wednesday. I want to look ahead. I can look ahead now.
You're always trying to look ahead, Big Seth.
Sometimes you have to do it, Juice, and I think this is one of those times.
This is a review and preview show, man. You know what I mean?
Well, we're going to do a little bit of that. So, look, I'm going to start right here. Okay, if we want to get into the nitty-gritty, how about, are we going to be at Bo Campers this week? Shake Money, you might get an appearance at Bo Campers from somebody in there, because that whole crew, the Worldwide Dolphins Club, is raising money for the Jason Taylor Foundation. So I appreciate that. All right. Perk, the day after the game, I open up the Sun Sentinel, not the paper, sunsentinel.com. And Chris Perkins, right? Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer cannot return in 2026. You've seen enough.
I've seen enough. And here's the deal. I say they shouldn't return next season. I'm fine with them staying the rest of the season if especially Mike McDaniel, if he earns it. General managers are rarely fired during the season. I think the Jets did it most recently a few years ago. But the way that it usually goes, the coach goes during the season, the GM goes after the season. The reason I'm there with Mike McDaniel is because this team has continued to underachieve and disappoint. And what we see at 1-4 is pretty much a point of no return. Now, I'm aware the 2016 Dolphins team started out 1-4, then they discovered Jay Ajayi and they got to the playoffs, even with a backup quarterback, Matt Moore, finishing the job. I don't see that happening with this team, and the reason is there's no cavalry coming, right? Like Tyreek Hill is out. There's no Calais Campbell or Jalen Ramsey that's coming off the injured list. Yeah, you could get James Daniels at right guard and Austin Jackson at right tackle. That's not going to be enough. Yeah, but that's not going to be enough. So McDaniel right now is a 500 coach, right? He's 29-29, including the 0-2 record in the playoffs. And to me, when you've had the best talent this franchise has had in 2 decades, being a 500 team is not good enough. Being 4-16 entering the season against playoff teams is not good enough. Having Tua be 2-10 entering the season against playoff teams over the last 2 years is not good enough. you don't see a lot of player development. You don't see a lot of hope on the horizon. And I'll add this also, finally, I think players like Mike McDaniel. I think players respect Mike McDaniel, but at a certain point, players are going to stop listening to Mike McDaniel. And at that point, that's when you need to make the change.
Well, that's interesting. That's very interesting. You know, I think a lot of us have been on the roller coaster ride with Coach Mike. I do believe this, though, Perk. I do think that we've gotten better as an offense, even though we haven't finished games, obviously, because we're 1-4. I think for sure that you look at some of these guys. I mean, look, obviously week 1 was a disaster. I thought we did okay offensively in week 2 against New England, and then week 3. Hell, we're not supposed to even come close to doing well in Buffalo on a Thursday night, and they go out there and they play well. Week 4, Monday night against the Jets, I thought they had a solid game. And then I thought up 3 quarters of, well, not even 3 quarters, I'll go 2.5 quarters of the last game, it was pretty good. But then you're right. I think a lot of this, same old shit keeps going on for us in that team, man. So, yeah, Mike is on thin ice, man. But here's the thing, too, though, Perk. Think about this. There's no team really running away with shit right now either, man. Nobody looks invincible. But it has to start this week, right? I mean, after all that's going on, it has to start this week. And I'm with you, though. I don't see any daylight in sight for this team because it's really the same old pattern we've had, even though we haven't gotten destroyed by anybody other than the Colts.
No, yeah. But you know what? I think that the best game that the Dolphins have played this season was the loss to Buffalo. Got crushed against Indianapolis. Had the turnovers by Tua against New England and against Buffalo. Had to hang on to beat the Jets. And then you go to Carolina and you just lay an egg. So I don't see the improvement. I think this team has actually regressed from what I saw in training camp. You saw some signs of some fight against Chicago and Detroit in those joint practices, and then in the game that they didn't come out looking good in either situation, but they showed a little bit of fight after not looking good in the joint practice, and then in Detroit's case, you look good in the second joint practice, and you got a little bit better in the game. We left off with Jacksonville with the first team Dolphins offense struggling against the second team Jacksonville defense.
Yeah.
That should have been a red flag. I disregarded it. But that Indy game, and here's the other thing, is the organizational/operational errors, the delay of game and the personnel not knowing who's in the huddle. That stuff shouldn't be happening with this team. You're in year 4 of the Mike McDaniel program. I think they've regressed since that Indianapolis game. That's my problem here.
Now, Perk, do you think that they have too many personnel groupings? Because I remember when I played, both the wide receivers always stayed in. Then maybe a tight end would come in or a third wide receiver would come in. They've got so many guys that come in and out of the lineup. It drives me crazy, man, especially when your best players are going in and out of the lineup. We know Tyreek and Waller were doing it already. Now without Tyreek, you see it happening with other players. You can see that by snap count, how guys are in and out of the lineup. And I think they're being too cute with the shit is what I'm saying.
Yeah, Mike has a tendency to kind of overthink things. And I think that goes along with the speed thing. Mike hasn't changed quickly enough to me that I thought the league caught up with his offense after 2022. 2023, I thought, was a situation of the Dolphins beating up on a bunch of bad teams and losing to good teams. And I didn't see any adjustments in the way of more physicality, more aggression. They doubled down on the speed, drafting Jalen Wright. And so that's the thing, that somebody in that building, and by the way, I included Chris Greer because I view this as institutional failure. Somebody in that building should have said, hey, Mike, let's get a power back. Hey, Mike, let's play a little more physically. Hey, Mike, let's maybe not so much outside zone. Let's make a change. And if somebody did say that, I'd like to know why they were ignored. So it's institutional failure. So that's why I say Greer and McDaniel.
Well, I mean, you said that, I remember last year, that you weren't opposed to them staying, but they both needed to stay. You joined them at the hip, and I think a lot of people agree
Yes.
with you there. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't want to ask you where we go from here, but I also want to point out in the chat. So Shake Money says he likes bald Chris Perkins. He keeps it real. I think Perk is definitely keeping it real right here for sure. And then Joe Robbie said he knows things are getting bad if Sevach is using his PTO. So Sevach is here. He's just operating in the background right now. He's having a bad hair day, I think. I think that's what it is. So, but this is my question. So this is what you're saying. They cannot return. The question is, if a change is made, when should a change be made? I've heard different arguments. I think Barry Jackson just had a very interesting article about how he feels things should move forward, and that Stephen Ross should find somebody to work alongside Tom Garfinkel to really analyze the whole program while Chris Grier is still in place. And then they can make a determination as to whether or not Chris Grier stays in place at the end of the season. And Chris needs to just kind of accept that that's where it is. I thought that was an interesting take. And then if you made a change at head coach, and I'm not necessarily advocating for that yet, but I certainly understand why we're having the conversation. If you made that change in the season, OJ, Chris, who do you guys name as interim head coach? Because, you know, if you would have said that at the start of the season, Anthony Weaver was a hot coaching candidate.
Right.
And I think everyone got excited when Anthony Weaver gave that impassioned press conference and talked about needing violence and making change with violence. The results, we have not seen them on the field, but he sounded like a guy that people would rally behind if he wasn't necessarily calling plays, but was overlooking the entire operation. I just don't know how you could go that direction. So again, I am not saying that it's time to pull the plug and start handing people their pink slips. But if that decision is made, where do you go from here?
I'll go first here. I agree. I think I would have thought that Anthony Weaver was the guy, but considering the run defense and the front seven, I think the front seven is the biggest disappointment on the team right now. I overrated them. I thought they were going to be a game-changing, game-winning unit, but they haven't been. They haven't been able to stop the run. They haven't been able to pressure the passer. We haven't seen Zach Sealer playing the way that we know that he can play. Same for Chubb, same for Phillips, same for Chop, same Jordan Brooks and Terrell Dotson are making tackles 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So you know, I don't know. Here are my top candidates. Still Anthony Weaver, tight ends coach John Embry, who preaches a lot of candor, right? He's very blunt while not being a jerk. He's just very blunt. Darrell Bevell, the quarterbacks coach, has been an interim head coach. Eric Studesville, the running backs coach, has been an interim head coach. So, you know, that it would be Weaver, Embry, Bevel, Studesville would be the group that I choose from. Joe Barry, the linebackers coach, has been a defensive coordinator.
You're giving me like Dolphins 2021 offensive coordinator. There's three of them. I don't know who's calling the plays. Pick what? Who's the guy? Like you are a team owner, Chris Perkins. Who are you naming?
I don't know. I would have thought
me they need to make a change. You know that.
Well, but I don't look, Seth. How can you put Weaver in there? Like
I hear you. That's why I'm asking the question.
So,
but I'm
Embry would be my. I still think that Weaver has the best head coaching chops, but I just don't know that his message would resonate when players look at the performance of his unit. How are they going to believe in him any more than McDaniel? So
I do not agree. I do not agree.
No, okay, go ahead, Juice.
We can't judge Weave on his defensive performance. I get that part. We're talking about a guy that can lead these men. Who's the best guy to lead these men and get them back on the right track? And who's to say that Weave isn't that guy? Their defense obviously isn't playing very well, but at the same time, though, you can't tell me that these guys don't look up to this guy. You can't tell me he doesn't keep it a buck in these press conferences about what's going on, and he knows that it has to be fixed. So sometimes as a coordinator, we've seen coordinators that aren't very good head coaches, right? But we've got a guy that might be better off being the head coach, leading the whole operation and kicking somebody in the butt rather than calling plays. And he might have somebody within the organization that can call the plays for him. So I don't know, man. I just think that sometimes we give guys the head coaching jobs that were OCs and they stink at OC. But who knows if maybe this gig isn't best fit to be a defense coordinator right now. Instead, he'd be a better head man leading some of these dudes. That's just how I feel about Weave. But you do have a bunch of guys that have some experience. But if they have all this freaking experience, then why aren't they getting to Mike about what helping him? You want, honestly, if you're a secure head coach and you've got all these former interns and all these other head coaches, that's the best combination you can have, I think, when it comes to decision making, play call, and all this other stuff. What are we doing on off days? How long are we gonna practice today? What are we putting on the schedule? That's ideal, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, I think that it's an interesting point that Juice just made, and we're not in the building, right? We don't see what a guy's drawn up. And Juice, correct me if I'm wrong. The quickest way a coach loses a player's respect is two things. One, they're not honest with them,
right?
Even if they blow smoke up their ass, or the players do not like being lied to. And two, if they get on that board and what they're saying is if they don't make any sense. Coach, what you're asking us to do will not work. Like, that is crazy. And we've heard players talk about that.
There's theory, Seth, there's theory, and there's reality. Some coaches put theories up on the board, but the players know that's not the reality. That's not how it's going to really happen up here.
Weaver was an average player. He was never an all-pro, what have you, but he did play the game. I think guys respect the fact that he played the game. And I do believe he has the makeup to lead a group of men. And certainly to get you through a season. But to the point that Perk made, I don't think it's the players that would question, well, wait a second, how is this guy in that position when his defense is so? I think the fan base might lose their damn minds, although some people in the chat here seem to don't have an issue with it. And then I think, from a media perspective, that it would also be under some significant scrutiny. So I think that would be the challenge that Stephen Ross would face making that decision. I think Embry's also a great choice. I mean, he has been a head coach, even though he didn't have a great success at the University of Colorado when he was a head coach. And he is the assistant head coach. It's like, if we actually look at Juice, we talk about totem poles a lot. If we look at the totem pole, he is the assistant head coach. He seemed to be the guy that, even you look at, if you watch the sidelines, a pissed off Tyreek Hill might have John Embry's arm around him. You can see that I think his influence extends beyond just the tight end room, and he does not mince words when it comes to a lack of performance from his position group. So I think he would be interesting as well.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Who thought Dan Campbell would be a good head coach?
Right.
I did.
But what
Savach
he did bring,
that
mentality, that physicality, I think that's what we're lacking. And then think about this too. If, I don't, like we said, Seth, we're not asking for anybody's jobs, but if Mike McDaniel were to lose his job, wherever it takes place, they're going to have a different mindset and mentality and play calling and all kinds of different things. Mike gets into a lot of pass happy, quick screen type of deals, whereas you might have a guy that's on our roster as a coach right now that's thinking more downhill, more Ollie Gordon opportunities, more Darren Waller opportunities, more things like that. Whereas Mike was already stuck on Tyreek for a while. Now who knows where he's going to be stuck now. So a whole attitude changes when you do something like that in the build. And another thing that happens too is Mike can't change who he is in front of that team anymore. He can't. He can't go in there and be a tough. He can't do all that anymore. They already know who Mike is. You get a new guy up in there, the new sheriff in town, some shit could change in that locker room, bro, and it could change for the better. Who knows?
Wait, real quick.
Go ahead, Chad.
Real quick, Chris. Juice, we've seen the team, though, play really good ball for a half and 2.5 quarters, and then just falls apart. Who is that on?
Head man. Halftime adjustments or lack thereof.
So you need a second half coach.
Well, we need a 4-quarter coach. There's nothing in overtime, but
Wayne Huizenga offered Jimmy Johnson the opportunity to coach only home games in '99.
Oh my God!
So maybe there's a
I wish he would have coached from home, his own home, remotely. I wish he would have coached remotely.
Juice, was that the offer you put on the table?
I did, man. Before they started doing this live stuff, you know what I mean? I wish that was right now.
Hey, I'll say this about the interim coach, and again, as we have to say, nobody's advocating for Mike to lose his job right now. I don't think he should come back next season, but the Dolphins have done well with interim head coaches when you look at Todd Bowles and Dan Campbell. And who would have thought Dan Campbell would have gotten that job? He was the tight ends coach. Right. Zach Taylor was on that staff as the co-offensive coordinator. Zach Taylor, who took Cincinnati to a Super Bowl. The Dolphins, and I wrote this over the offseason, they've had good coaching staffs. If I'm not mistaken, there are 7 current defensive coordinators who are former Dolphins coaches or coordinators. Anthony Campanelli was the last one, Brian Flores, Matt Burke, Vance Joseph, right? The other ones are escaping me, but they've had good coaching staff. So I could pretty much trust that their decision on an interim coach would be something that I could get behind, because again, that Dan Campbell decision, we were all looking at each other like, what? He's not a coordinator. He's your freaking tight ends coach. What about Rizzi? What about Zach Taylor? And they nailed it. They nailed it. So, Todd Bowles is doing a good job in Tampa. So I could trust who, like Seth said, we're not in that building. I could trust them to that extent.
All right, we made some progress here, Juice. We made some progress in this point.
Good stuff.
Cool. So I'm gonna move on to the next thing I have here, and it's another where do we go from here question, but as is, right? So let's operate under the assumption all we can do right now is the team that we see, the team that we know, that we saw on Sunday, the way it's constructed is the team that we're going to move forward with in this next game against the Chargers and moving forward until further notice. And so, Juice, as a player, if you're in a situation like that, what has to be the mindset? Like, we're death and despair here as a fan base. Everybody's calling for everybody's heads in the media, but as a player who shows up to work the next day, like, do you have to go in there and say, hey, we got to win the next 12? Like, what is the mentality?
No, you can't do that. But you know what? You have to show up, obviously, and you got to go back to work. There's guys on this team right now that might be playing their last year of football, and you owe it to them. You owe it to the guy next to you to go out there and go to work. Be a professional about it. But if you look at what we've got going on, Seth, it's the cliche, man. You got to get the 1-0 again this week, and it's an opportunity to get there. And that's what you have to look at. Having the Chargers and then the Browns and then then Atlanta. There's opportunities right there, honestly, with all three of those teams to get to 500. The goal right now is to get to 500, but you can't get to 500 until we get to 2-4. And I think it starts this weekend. So these guys have to have that mentality that they can't do anything about the last 5 games, the last 4 losses that we had. They've got to get ready for this game right here. If they get this win, they can go to Cleveland and win. They can go to Atlanta and win. I think those are opportunities right there. And so if you got the right guys in there barking in the locker room, and I hope they do, and they've got 12 captains, if they've got the right guys barking in the locker room, then they'll get that message across, man. And not only that, we talk about Mike a lot. There's a lot of positional meetings going on, man. There's a lot of separate breakout rooms that we have when it comes to the NFL. So what's your head guy in your room doing to make sure your group is ready to go? Coach Ford always said, we're gonna run all day, we're gonna hit people, we're gonna block. He had us ready to go. What's going on in some of the other rooms? And that's what it's all about. There's a lot of breakout rooms when it comes to it. Then they come together as a group. Who's leading that charge as players, man? Because honestly, I said it the other day to somebody asked me, I said, the players got to go out there and make plays too, man. McDaniel and Weaver and, Embry, they're not tackling anybody. They're not throwing any passes. Sure, hope the coach put them in the right position to do so. But damn, step up as players, man, and take charge of this damn team. Because honestly, they're going to get their coach fired if they don't do better.
Yeah. Speaking of getting people fired, the dive bar is creating all kinds of controversy in the chat here. Sevach, I think, is getting an offer here to be a new producer. There's all kinds of crazy shit going on in the chat. I'm glad you brought up players, Juice. And anytime you talk about football players, what position do you start with? And it's the quarterback. So here's a question, because you sent right before the final drive that the Dolphins had, you tweeted at me. And you said, hey, Seth, it's time for Tua to prove us wrong. And you were referring to his ability to be big in the biggest moments. And there have been flashes of that. Armando Salguero wrote an interesting column this week about when he has done it and when he hasn't done it. This season, there's been 3 opportunities and they've all failed miserably. But my question is, based on the response that we got that you got from that tweet, are we asking too much? Are we expecting too much from Tua? Like, does it matter? Should it matter that he played really well for 3.5 quarters? Efficient, 3 touchdowns, made a lot of big time throws. Does it matter that he did those things? if he does, and the big play to Waddle in what could have been the final drive if you could get a defensive stop, which I don't know why anybody thought that we could get a defensive stop, but in that drive that could have been, then it would have been the game-winning drive, the game-winning throw, right? And so some people are like, oh, what more did you want from him? Well, I know for me and Juice, I don't want to speak for you. I think what more we wanted was we needed one more drive. That's what the game required. Correct. If you watch the game later that night, where you've got Trevor Lawrence going blow for blow with Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes throws a touchdown. Here comes back for more. Like, what more? You needed one more drive. That's exactly what required.
That's exactly what it requires. You got to have more. You got to have it when you need it. You know what I mean? That's the bottom line right there. You got to have it when you need it. You know, a lot of quarterbacks, Seth, you watched a lot of these games last weekend, man. You saw all the quarterbacks going back and forth. And a lot of us, the last man that had the ball ended up getting the win. You know, we knew that, hell, I always talk about Danny, man. We knew if we got the ball last, we're going to win the freaking football game. Yeah. You know, and that's who's afraid of the Dolphins offensively or defensively in the fourth quarter? Nobody. Nobody's afraid of them, man. And that's a problem. We gotta have somebody or a group of guys out there that, like, you know, you didn't want Peyton Manning to get 30 seconds left on the clock. You didn't want Tom Brady to have 20 seconds left on the clock. Now we got guys that, you know, they say, you know what? They're not going to move it anyways. They're not going to get anything done. And back to that tweet, yeah, that was a big moment, man, for him. It was a big moment considering, you know, we scored 3 times in a row, then we punted 5 times. Into the fourth quarter, we're punted. He got a long touchdown to Waddle, yeah. But then we got another opportunity. We got an opportunity to go again. That's the opportunity I'm talking about. And that's the opportunity that a lot of these great quarterbacks, even the good ones, are taking advantage of.
So, Juice, and to your point, well, Joe Robbie right there, you don't want to give Josh Allen 27 seconds. And then Mike Olivia,
I don't want to get that dude anytime.
And Mike Olivia, if you're going to sign a $212 million contract, nobody cares about quarters 1 through 3. Got to make the big plays in the fourth quarter.
Facts.
I know that's how you feel.
Facts. Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time moments, period.
Yep. And my column today was they showed Tua the money, but he hasn't shown us enough magic. And to me, that's what the fourth quarter is about, that magic. In the 23 and 24 seasons, Tua was 2-10 against playoff teams, 15 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 84.8 passer rating. Compare that to Josh Allen over the same span, 23-24 seasons. He played against playoff teams. He's 10-6, 27 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 99.1 passer rating. Now, I'll say this. I think the institution has failed Tua. And I say that not to make excuses for Tua, but because you knew this guy had limitations. Build around him like Detroit did with Jared Goff, like Philly has done with Jalen Hurts, like San Francisco did with Brock Purdy. And look, I don't put this all on Tua. He happens to be in the AFC at a time where you got Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow. That could be 4 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Right. So he's got to step his game up to a big level, but that's what it's all about. Like, that's how you separate yourself. And you make those big plays in the big moments, in the games against the playoff teams, in the fourth quarter. I still think you can win a Super Bowl with Tua. I truly, truly believe that. Dang, Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. Like, how does that happen? Because you've got a team around him. And that's my fault with the Dolphins, is that you knew Tua is immobile. You knew Tua doesn't necessarily come through in the fourth quarter, so make his life easier. Get him a better offensive line. Get him a better power running back. You've got to give this man the tools that acknowledge his shortcomings instead of just relying on his left arm. I think they failed Tua, but having said that, Tua's got to be better. We've got to see some magic from him.
Yeah, I mean, Perk, when you're describing a quarterback that can't make big plays in big moments and can't run and whatever else he said, it didn't sound like a guy you have faith in winning a Super Bowl. I mean, that didn't sound like a Super Bowl winning quarterback you were describing.
Nick Foles is a career backup. He won a Super Bowl. Yeah. And listen, Denver in 2015, the year of the no-fly zone defense, Peyton Manning was beaten up. I believe he was the worst rated quarterback in the league that year. Him and Brock Osweiler combined for 19 touchdowns, 23 interceptions. Yet they found a way to win the Super Bowl. Like it is all about the quarterback, but it's not all about the quarterback, if that makes sense. Like you've got to find a way you've got to acknowledge, okay, my guy has some shortcomings here. Let's build up the defense. Let's build up the run game. Let's build up the offensive line. How does Nick Foles win a freaking Super Bowl?
I mean, the same way Trent Dilfer did.
Yeah, that's true too. But Perk, you don't think, right? They invest in first round right tackle in Austin Jackson. They invest in a second round left tackle. They've got a second round left guard. They've got a free agent center in Brewer that's really, really good. They've got, they've done, not only to mention, we all thought Tyreek was probably the best receiver in the game when we got him.
Yep.
We know that Waddle's a high draft pick. That should be a 1A, 1B. You know what I mean? In terms of those guys. So, and then you've got Achane, who's probably better than his draft status is. And then I think they've got guys around him on offense. So I just don't, you know what I mean?
But you still had a one-trick, one-dimensional offense. It was Tyreek and the threat of Tyreek. That's all it was.
That's what they made it. That's how they made it, though, right? That's how they made the offense.
No. Well, they didn't have a power run game. Like, how did you take pressure off of Tua? You couldn't. There's no offensive line to help him. There's no run game to help him. He didn't have a big-bodied receiver to help him.
I mean, he had a running back that ran for 18 touchdowns. And I don't know.
Okay, but only one against a playoff team. Again, 2023.
They were no good against playoff teams across the board. Like that.
Right. But Seth, here's the other part of my institutional failure. In 2023, you did all this stuff against bad teams and you got your butt kicked against good teams.
Right.
Yet you handed out all these contract extensions. It's your job to recognize that we didn't do good enough. What were you rewarding them for? Like what? I don't
agree with you.
Numbers.
I say OJ and I have had this conversation. I certainly agree with all of those things. I just feel like the goalposts keep moving, and I'm trying to keep up with you. It's like Skip to my Lou. I'm trying to guard Skip to my Lou right now, Juice, and he's just fucking dribbling the air out of the ball. So no, but my question is the issue that you're saying Tua's right and everything else is wrong, or
no.
That you don't have to have a good player at quarterback if you build around them. Like I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
What I'm saying is
you can complain. I don't even know what it's about.
Listen, you can win a Super Bowl. You don't need a Hall of Fame quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Right. Nick Foles showed us that, right? The 2015 Denver Broncos showed us that. If you build Jared Goff is not going to the Hall of Fame, right? They have a chance to win the Super Bowl.
Quarterback, though. I think Jared Goff's a pretty good quarterback, but you paid him like a Hall of Fame quarterback. You paid him like a Hall of Fame quarterback. So but
that was another mistake, because after 2023, you make him play on his fifth-year option. He hasn't showed you that he can beat good teams. He hasn't showed you he can stay healthy. Why are you paying him that contract? Make him play on his fifth-year option. Baltimore did that with Lamar Jackson. Play on your fifth-year option. And then you would have had him at a discount this year because he didn't stay healthy, because he didn't beat good teams. So look, again, it's institutional failure. After 2023, you overestimated the result of that 11-6 season. You built everything on, yes, we're almost there. And it's like, no, the evidence shows you're not close to being almost there. You're not even at the Buffalo-Baltimore level. And Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, they can't even get to a Super Bowl. And you weren't near as good as they are. Like, they can't get past Patrick Mahomes. You can't get close to them. But you should have been able to.
So Perk was ready to get back in the live. That is for sure. Yeah. What's interesting is somehow I started out this element of the conversation disagreeing with whatever it started out being. All those things you just threw at me, I agree with. I just don't think that's what we were arguing to begin with. So,
well, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just think it sounds to me, it's not that they failed Tua. It just sounds like you're saying they failed. That's really what it sounds like, is that in general, organizationally, they have failed to build a team that would be competitive. It's not
They
about
have, but they have, but they put, but no, they failed as an organization, but mostly they've left Tua out there on an island. Like it's Tua's left arm, and that's not good enough. It's Tua to Tyreek. That's not good enough. You need it to have a power run game. You need it to have a big target at wide receiver or tight end. Like it's Tua is not, and that's the thing with Mike McDaniel. He fell in love with this speed game and this deep pass game that got shut down in 2023. Like that's what the eye test showed. That's what the numbers showed. But you ignored that and handed out these contract extensions instead of saying, no, we will reward you when you win a playoff game, when you do something worthy of a reward. And they show, hey, statistical achievements. Yes, here's some money. That's the wrong approach.
So I'm going to shift gears because I don't think anybody disagrees with essentially what you're saying there at the end.
Not at all.
Let's shift to the other side.
Chad
of the ball.
said sexy Rexy, though. That's what he wants, by the way. I saw that, Chad.
There's stuff going on. I lost, and I was doing a pretty good job of following it, and shit just went crazy. There were a couple really interesting questions I want to ask about the defense because everyone said, "Wow, what about the defense? What about the defense?" But I think Sam Marcoux asked the question. Omar has been pushing recently that Stephen Ross will not fire Chris Grier because of the ongoing legal, dynamic between Brian Flores, the lawsuit, all of those things. I think that's ridiculous, but what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Go ahead, Crip. Go ahead, Spark.
I talked about this with Omar today in the media room, in the media workroom. Here's
I wish you guys would do a live from the media workroom, by the way. I've sat in there. Y'all are off the chain. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, me and Omar go at it. I don't want to get overly political here, but Omar's thing is that Steve Ross would be wise to keep Chris Grier in the fold so he doesn't testify against him. And my thing is the tone of the times politically. I don't know that Brian Flores is going to win a racial discrimination lawsuit. With the way things are going nowadays with anti-diversity, equity, the inclusion, DEI, the way that the judges are going nowadays, and now Marcel Louis Jacques or somebody in there said it would be a jury trial. It wouldn't be up to the judge. So maybe that's different. But if I don't think you can rely on the tone of the times. I don't think that it's going to go the way of racial discrimination suits nowadays. So I don't think that it's a valid point that you would keep Chris Grier in there just to keep him from testifying against you and testifying for Flo. I just think politically, I'm not sure that would work.
Juice, were you going to say something?
Yeah, that whole situation is crazy. Of course, I've had some litigation things myself, and honestly, you're going to find bad judges and bad juries at times, anyways, no matter what. But if Chris is going to, if that's the case, Stephen Ross, as you said, Stephen Ross has the advantage right now all day. Because of the system right now, Stephen Ross has the advantage, and nobody wants to hear about this discrimination, even though we know it happens every day. I don't care what anybody says; it happens every day. It happens both ways, but more, majority of people that are discriminated against, they don't look like Chad Van Horn, even though he's a good-looking dude. You know what I mean?
Did Chad just get you straight?
It's just the way it is, man. But Chad is a guy that is one of the fairest people I know. So I wish, Chad would be on any jury I've ever had to deal with. But anyhow, I just think that no matter what, Stephen Ross has the advantage no matter what. And Chris better, he's going to have to anyways. If there was a situation where he had to be a part of this case, he better step up, man, and do what he's supposed to do, because he knows facts. He knows the truth about the situation. It wouldn't get this far if there wasn't some teeth to whatever's going on anyways, But to keep Chris around for any other reason is ridiculous to me. Chris has done all this. How long has he been with us, Perk?
Well,
he was there when I was there, Juice.
Right, at some capacity, right?
He's been the GM since 2016 and in charge of the draft, and then in charge of the whole operation since 2019.
Okay. Yeah, that's long enough. So that's long enough, man. And I'm gonna tell you this too, man. Nothing personal, maybe this personal with me and Chris Greer, but Chris, I've talked to Chris a couple of times, and Chris is a hard guy to get a call back from. Put it that way between he and I. So honestly, I don't give a damn what happens to Chris Greer anymore, because all I care about is the Dolphins. And if Chris Greer is the one that's wrecking my squad, then he needs to be the one to go as well. So, and I'm never calling for anybody's job, but if Perk is right about how they're building this thing, and it's a collaborative deal, right, Perk? That's what we talked about. They're all in sync with what they're doing here. Then I've got a problem with both of them at that point. Then.
So I'm going to say this, and then want to move on to the defense, because we just haven't had enough heartache here in this live. But as it relates to that, I think it's ridiculous for a couple reasons. Number one, some of the things that Stephen Ross might have been accused of, I think Chris Greer was probably by his side, right? So, was maybe complicit in some of the decisions that were made in terms of personnel and what have you. But the biggest thing for me is that I think it's, regardless of what you think of the job that Chris Greer is doing at this point, I think it's an insult to a guy who spent his whole life dedicated to the National Football League, who earned the position, right? He came up the right way. He worked his ass off. He grew up in football. He earned the position. He was given opportunities. He made big decisions collectively with other people. And if it hasn't worked out, just like everybody else in the friggin' NFL, I remember JT saying one day, if they fire number 13, they're going to walk all of our asses out of here at some point. And that's the way that position, that business works, is that everybody at some point, not everybody gets to go out like John Elway did. In fact, very few do. And that, whether that's coaches, players, or general managers. And if it's time for him to go, to Juice's point, if he's not getting the job done, was it you, Perk? I think you wrote the article about he's got the longest tenure of any general manager who has not won a playoff game. And if those are I think you could sit there and lay out and say, this is the job requirement. These are the things that aren't being done. This is why I had to make a decision. You want to go check my record on diversity, hiring, and the decisions that we make as an organization? I think the Dolphins are probably at the top of professional sports when it comes to, at one point they had a man of color at both the head coach position and a general manager position.
They do now too. They do now too.
Well, there you go. And so to say that a head coach got fired or a general manager got fired, I think that that's the way it works. I think it's an insult to Greer, both how he earned the job and how he will lose the job whenever that comes. I think that's an insult to him to say that decision's being made strictly as a pawn in a lawsuit. So that's my opinion there. As far as this Dolphins defense, let's talk about something that's a little more tangible. Can it be salvaged, fellas? What can be done here? Is it as simple as the defensive tackles are young guys that can't, aren't ready to be as productive as they're being asked to be? Is it as simple as Zach Sealer's not playing next to a player the caliber of Calais Campbell and or Christian Wilkins now? Is it as simple as that? Are the edge rushers, are Chubb and Phillips broken down, with all the injuries that they've had to overcome, even though they look and have worked hard? And, is it as simple as that? Can it be salvaged? Is there any hope for the Dolphins defense?
Chris, Juice, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
I'll go first. Okay, good.
There's got to be some hope. There really has to be some hope. And those guys up front have got the reasons. Our linebackers are 1 and 3 in the league in tackles. Mm-hmm. And Chris said it earlier in the show, because they're getting them 5 yards down the field. They're not keeping anybody off of these dudes, man. So it's got to get better. And I know we got some young dudes in there at tackle. Kenneth Grant, our first-round pick. He's got to learn the game the way it's played at the NFL level. Sure, he played at Michigan. He played against Ohio State. He played against Penn State. But he also played against Northwestern Indiana. You know what I mean? So you got to realize that every single day you're lined up against somebody that might have gone, I don't care, whatever, Kennesaw, whatever, but they're NFL players and they're grown-ass men. And that has to change up front. And Perk, maybe you can help me with this a little bit. I know at one point they were talking about some guys doing a little freelancing. Are they still doing a little freelancing with this defense? Because I see some gaping holes that Sevach can run through. You know what I mean? And we know how tough that can be, bro. You know what I mean?
Sevach's smooth though, man. You don't.
I get it. He's about $150 though, man. You know, you don't want to be running through them holes with $150, man. You know, so
you don't want to get hit.
I just wonder what's been going on and what's been the chatter about that defensive front, because like we talked about, man, that was the group that everybody should be. That's the team. That's the group that has to have so much dog in them. They got to have so much Timbo in them. They got to have so much Jason Taylor in them. They got to have so much of that in them, man, because that's where it's at, man. And I just don't see it. And it's puzzling to me to see Zach struggle, you know. And it's not, you know, I know Zach, he's probably his toughest critic, but I hate to see somebody get paid and then they struggle. You know what I mean? We see it all the time. You talk about, and Zach earned his money. He had to wait to get his money pretty much, whereas all these other dudes were gifted money. Not gifted because, you know, they didn't earn it, but they could have waited on their money. They didn't have to get paid right when they did. So I think that defense has a chance. But the fact that our linebackers are 1 and 3 in the league in tackles, that's unacceptable right there. The fact that we can't get home with what we thought was going to be great to have Chubb and Phillips back along with Chop and have this, we can't even get into our 3 defensive end pass group because they're never in bad down and distances anymore because the run game against us. You know, we want to get into that fast group when they're, you know, 3rd and 10, 12, 13, 14. We can't even get into that group because they're always in manageable down and distances, you know. Minka Fitzpatrick's all over the field, you know, trying to make plays. We got guys in the secondary turning down tackles, man. So can they get there, Big Seth? Back to your question. I hope the hell they can, man, because if they can't, then we're going to end up going back and forth again, and we're going to be counting on Tua to win us a football game in the fourth quarter, which we've already discussed ad nauseum.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I don't know exactly what's going on with the defense. There is still freelancing going on, but you know, I think it's freelancing out of a lack of trust for the guy next to you. You know, I think one sign of this team breaking down that I haven't seen is freelancing out of selfishness. So, in other words, you know, Jalen Phillips saying, "Oh, I'm on my 5th-year option. Screw the scheme. I need to get my numbers so I can get paid next year." We don't see that. We don't see that from Zach Sealer. But so. Short of that, I'm just left to think that these guys are underperforming, and I don't know why. I don't know why Zach Sealer would be underperforming. Maybe he's feeling the pressure from the contract, and maybe it is that there's no Wilkins and Campbell. I don't know about Chubb and Phillips. Maybe they're not 100% healthy yet. I don't know about Chop. You know, last season, one of the reasons that Chop caught fire was he moved out a little more wide, right? And he had the option of the inside or outside. Maybe the league has caught up with him, and now he's got to get ahead. They've adjusted to his adjustment, and so now he's got to adjust. I'm reaching. I don't know. I thought this front 7, I knew the secondary was going to be dicey. I thought the front 7 were going to be ballers. Juice and Seth and Chad, I don't know. So I can't sit here and bullshit you. I don't know what's going on. That front 7 is a huge disappointment. You've got some talent, not all Pro Bowl Hall of Fame talent. There's no Zach Thomas and JT up there, no Timbo up there, but Benito is a vet. Zach is a vet. Chubb, Phillips, Matthew Judon, Brooks, Dodson. Behind them, you got KJ Britt and Willie Gay. Like, you've got proven vets, dudes who have skins on the wall in this league. So I can't give you a good explanation. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about the secondary. I don't think they have a shot when what's happening in front of them is happening. I mean, I don't care how good you are on the back end. If a quarterback can run around all day out there or has time, you can't get pressure. And now you've got the threat of the play action and the run, and they're just gashing you. I don't know how the secondary would have a shot. All right, I'm going to keep it moving here. I'm actually going to skip this next bullet point because I want to get into, we had a lively discussion. I'm watching the clock here as well. I do want to say, if you haven't had a chance, and Perk, I don't know if you heard this one, but we had Chip Namias on the podcast this week. I don't know if you remember. So Chip was the Dolphins PR director from 82 to 86. Dan Marino's first NFL PR guy. You know, he had the Killer Bees, went to 2 Super Bowls, worked with Coach Schuler, worked with Joe Robbie, a lot of fun stuff. Please go ahead and check that out either on YouTube or wherever you're downloading your audio podcast. We'd love for you guys to listen to that. It's time for I would say our favorite segment, but our favorite segment, especially when Perk's here, has become the Van Horn Law Group Legal Zone. So it's our second favorite segment here in Fish Tank Live. And it is, I tried to tell y'all, Juice, as always, you're going to kick us off.
I tried to tell y'all that Tua, as we've talked about a lot on this show, needed an opportunity without Tyreek Hill. And I'm not saying I'm happy that Tyreek Hill is not on our football team because he is dynamic. He's incredible. But Tua had to, without Tyreek Hill, had to share the wealth and spread the rock around to a lot of different guys. And before that, it was force feed, force feed, force feed. Now, Perkins said it a lot today, and I agree with him. Tua's not the guy, in my opinion, right now that's going to go down there and win us a football game. So we've got to have other guys go out there and make those plays. And so you do have a lot of guys around now that have been making plays. What we found out, though, Big Seth, is that they go away from these guys so often when we really need them the most. And so what's frustrating to me about what I was trying to tell you is that Tua cannot do it by himself. We watched some of those games the other day. You see some of these other quarterbacks. That's what we're looking for in a quarterback. We're not looking for the Nick Foles game manager. We're not looking for the Trent Dilfer game managers. All these other quarterbacks out here are guys that are out there getting it done by themselves at times, but of course they've got some players around. Tua has players around him. Find them. Get it done. So I've tried to tell you that Tua is a guy that, is a solid quarterback, but we're not going anywhere if he doesn't continue to distribute the rock and not count on his arm in the fourth quarter, and that's what I tried to tell you.
There it is. He tried.
There we go. That's it. All right. I'm up.
Next, my man.
All right. I tried to tell y'all the Dolphins should have drafted a cornerback in the 3rd or 4th round. Instead, they traded out of the 3rd and 4th rounds. I had no problem with them taking Kenneth Grant in the 1st round, even though Tyler Warren was right behind him for Indy. I had no problem with that. The problem I had was trading up to get Jonas Avainaya. You could have gotten Tate Ratledge. You could have stayed where you were and gotten Tate Ratledge. And then trading out of the 3rd and 4th rounds, if I'm not mistaken, there were 12 cornerbacks taken in the 3rd or 4th rounds. And the Dolphins needed a starting cornerback. At that point, they knew that they were trading Jalen Ramsey, and now you're in cornerback hell. I mean, it would have been nice if Storm Duck would have stayed healthy. It would have been nice if Cater stayed healthy, but they didn't. And now you've got nothing. You're scrambling. And that's no disrespect to Rasul Douglas or Jack Jones, but you're scrambling. You don't have enough. And so if you already had, when you traded up for Jonah, you already had James Daniels, right? I understand that you need quality players, but you need a quality cornerback more than you need 2 quality guards. You had a quality guard, a quality right tackle, a quality center. We didn't know about left guard and we didn't know about left tackle, but the center and right guard and right tackle would have been good enough. The cornerback position in today's pass-happy NFL is very, very important. You should have drafted a cornerback in the 3rd or 4th round. I tried to tell y'all.
He did try to tell us. That is documented. That's the one good thing with Perk. If he tried to tell you, you can look it up.
He's got receipts. He's got all kinds of receipts.
Definitely got full tape and check receipts. Well, fellas, I tried to tell y'all that I am sick of people throwing former Dolphins coaches and players in our face with no context and no perspective. So just this week, someone tried to drop Matt Burke on us. Matt freaking Burke, okay? Because, Houston had a good game. Oh, Matt Burke was with the Dolphins. Look at the Dolphins. They messed up everything. In 2018, Matt Burke led a Dolphins defense that was 27th in total points allowed, 29th in total yards allowed, 30th in yards per play allowed. That's not good. No, but everybody wanted him out of here. But, Matt Burke, no, let's not forget, 3 years later, He is the game management coach. What a title there. So he managed the games for the 4-12 New York Jets. Oh, how did we let Matt Burke get out of here? The 4-12 New York Jets. A year later, he's a defensive line coach for the Arizona Cardinals. Maybe he could have fixed our defensive line, except they went 4-13 with him as a defensive line coach. Don't throw Matt Burke in my face, okay? Now you guys are going to sit here and say the Dolphins messed up by letting him go. It's crazy. But this ridiculous argument, it's not limited to Matt Burke. We get Todd Bowles thrown in our face all the time, and I get it. Bowles is 6 games above 500 for Tampa in his 4 seasons there. It's not bad. But have we forgotten about the fact that when he was the head coach of the Jets, they were 24-40? Would we have accepted 24-40? We're pissed off at a 500 Mike McDaniel, 24-40. Okay, and then there's the great Dan Campbell. We all love Dan Campbell. And hell, he's on the top. He's a top-tier head coach right now.
Right.
But do we realize that after the Dolphins decided to hand the reins to Adam Gase rather than Dan Campbell, following he was 5-7, by the way, as interim head coach, okay? That it took 6 seasons.
It was the attitude, Big Seth.
He had great attitude. But it took him 6 seasons to get another head coaching job, and he had to spend those 6 seasons working under Sean Payton, okay? And then when he got a head coaching job in Detroit, do we remember that he went 3-13 in his first year at Detroit? Would Miami fans have been okay with waiting for 7 years of Dan Campbell to lead the Dolphins to a winning record for the first time? I don't think so, fellas. I don't think they would have. So please stop with the nonsense. If you want to tell me that you're unhappy with Miami's run defense, valid. If you want to tell me that you expected more of our pass rush, as we discussed here, I did too. No shit. If you want to tell me that Tua needs to close games, hell yes, he does. If you want to tell me that Greer should never be allowed to make a trade on draft day again, I get that as well. That record is pretty rough. McDaniel needs to run a tighter ship. No shit, I can accept all of this. But get out of here with your Anthony Campanelli bullshit. I don't want to hear about Lou Anarumo. Just blew his name up. I don't want to hear about Dan Campbell. I don't want to hear about any of these guys. Ben Johnson. Yeah, he's killing it over in Chicago. He's 2-2 in his first year, and the guy gets pissed off. You want to talk about a guy with triggers? That guy loses his damn mind every friggin' time he opens up his mouth. I don't want to hear about those guys, okay? That's ridiculous. Focus on the things that are valid because there's enough of them out there. I tried to tell y'all, stay out of my face with people who coached here 10 years ago.
Like it. Okay.
That's all I got.
Well done. Well done. I like that.
Been waiting for this.
He named names.
He did.
So speaking of waiting for this one, we're going to roll right into it. It is now time. Drum roll, priest.
That's an aggressive.
We need the Chad Van Horn legal zone. And Sam's still with us because I know he's going to have questions. And oh, by the way, Chris Perkins is back in the tank. I know you got something for us. You've been waiting 3 or 4 weeks. Why don't you kick us off with a legal question for Chad Van Horn?
All right, Chad, here's my question. I think I've got some water intrusion on the wall in my bathroom. So I'm giving myself 3 options here. Should I call my insurance company? Should I call the condo association and make them pay for it? Or better yet, should I just wait for black mold to give me a disease and then I hire an attorney and find somebody and sue the hell out of them? That's what I'm leaning toward is option number 3.
Man, we're starting off hot today, huh? Damn. All right.
It's true. I really do think I've got some water intrusion on the wall. Yeah.
If there's a legal issue, I know you have it. So I believe that.
Yeah.
So the short answer is yes. You got to notify all parties. So when you read the insurance policies, and yes, I do read the fine print. If you don't notify, that gets them off the hook. So you want to notify everybody that this is going on because then they do the inspections and then the insurance companies are going to decide who is responsible. And most likely it's the condo association's policy that should cover it. But you want to notify both and then let them do their own tests and inspections, and then they're going to battle it out. So it's going to be a long battle because, insurance companies, they don't like to pay. So it's going to be a long battle to see who works it out. But yeah, definitely maybe air that out a little bit so you don't get sick for sure.
So don't pick option number 3. You're suggesting, Chad, that he doesn't pick.
I mean, it would make my job easier if you picked option number 3 because I wouldn't have to answer all these questions, but, but we wouldn't have the content.
It is the Van Horn Law legal zone, but I think that Mike Olivia had a good said every one of Perk's questions is centered around his condo. Might be time to move. So that's
I got a great view of downtown Miami. I see dolphins swim by and people with yachts and stuff. Yeah.
There's a give and take in everything in life, no doubt. All right, yeah. We need another legal question. I saw something. Oh my God, I never thought a legitimate legal question could be so damn funny. Chad, can I sue a crayon company for making them taste so good? Well, there's a legitimate legal question for you. Man, and Sam's not even in the chat.
And I was chatting before about this. I mean, those crayons, they made them smell so good too. I ate a couple grapes myself when I was hungry back in the day. Yeah. So I'm sure there have been some lawsuits out there because they definitely made them smell and taste too good, and it's definitely not good for your health. So,
hey, Chad, we want to figure out why we weren't invited to, your big old money giveaway in your office, man. We thought we were part of the team, bro. I saw everybody walking away with hundreds of dollars and stuff and vacation, all kinds of stuff, man. What's going on in CasaBella Law Group in that office where everybody's, having so much fun over there? Y'all working over there or what, man?
Man, the first Friday of every month, that's when we do our giveaways, and we spun the wheel. We gave away a puppy. I don't know if you saw videos of the puppy. We gave away a puppy. We gave away cash. We gave away a bunch of stuff. So the first Friday of every month, you guys are welcome to come in. You might get a raffle ticket. You might win something. So you guys are always welcome to come to Van Horn Law Group.
Yeah. Right, well, real quick though, Chad, I know I want to congratulate a couple of your lawyers that actually passed the bar recently that you guys have in your group. You guys are still you're after mentoring and you're growing your office, man. And Perk, one thing about Chad is they've got somebody for everything. I mean, I sent my boy Sean over to yesterday. I think Sean came by to see you for some entertainment, corporate business stuff. So talk about some of the people you've got that you're adding. I mean, you keep adding lawyers after lawyer after lawyer because you guys are growing so fast.
Yeah, it's incredible, the growth. So we're statewide in Florida. We opened an office in Pennsylvania. We're going to New York. So we're hiring like crazy. So if anybody's watching, looking for a job and you want to get in the legal field, we're definitely hiring. So reach out to me. We had two new attorneys just get sworn in, pass the bar, which that's a huge event in their life. And so shout out to Ray and Hannah. And yeah, the family is just growing and growing and growing. And we're celebrating 15 years of my first 3 employees that I hired. They stayed with me for 15 years. So they definitely built this house, and they continue to do it. Without them, certainly wouldn't be anything like it is today.
Very cool. Congrats to them. I see a question in the chat. Laverne has some debts jointly with her spouse, but they file their taxes separately. Is it best to file bankruptcy together or separately? That's interesting. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, so it really comes down to the amount of debt each spouse has, and if it's equal and you can't pay it, then a joint filing is the best way to go. That's the most efficient way to become debt free. But we have some spouses that come in where one is an authorized user versus a borrower or co-borrower, meaning if you're an authorized user, legally speaking, you don't have to pay that debt back. So you could just file the person that is the borrower and clear out that debt, and that leaves the authorized user separate from it, and the bankruptcy would not impact their credit at all. So you certainly can do individual, but if it's majority of joint debt, I'd recommend wiping it all out together.
Hey, Chad, I do have one more quick one, and it's almost, I know y'all, Seth is like, damn, why'd I open the mic for him?
No, I'm glad. I love it.
This is based on a case, and I'm seriously not trying to bring humor to this. This is based on a case for a Dolphins wide receiver. When should you get a prenuptial agreement? What are their parameters? Like if you have 6-figure income, if you got 2 houses, when should you get a prenup?
Yeah, so my rule for that would be if you're bringing assets into a marriage and those are your independent assets, you should definitely talk about getting a prenuptial agreement. We are in South Florida, which I love South Florida, but we're known for many things down here, and some of the things are very, what's the word I'm looking for? Fake relationships, if you will. And I'm sure those go both ways. So people are chasing assets down here, maybe a beautiful
Chasing
condo with assets, assets. And maybe
I don't know what kind of show we had going on here. I want to make sure I heard you correctly.
And maybe somebody's chasing, like a condo on the water with a beautiful view and some mold. So you just got to make sure that you don't find that gold digger that really is after that condo.
A mold digger? Did you say a mold digger?
Mold digger.
I'm having a hard time hearing.
So that's what I recommend. And you could do it at any time, but if you truly built something together and you've been together for a while and it's all joint assets, it's not as important. But if you have acquired assets and you meet somebody and it ends up going to marriage, that's when you're going to want to look at that. I saw a question about post-nup agreements. Post-nup agreements will work as well. The key to any of these agreements is both spouses need to be represented separately, because you hear about some of these agreements getting rolled back because somebody will, like wedding day, come out with a prenup and say you got to sign it. And, the other side is already in and they're like, my family's here, everything. And, okay, I'm going to sign it and get married. And you'll see some of those things get rolled back. So definitely don't do that. Give each side time to review, make an educated decision. And the one thing about both a prenup and a postnup is you have to tell everything that you own. So, some people want to hide those things. So you really have to lay it out all on the table for that to be effective. If not, it could be fraud.
Got it.
I was at a wedding where a prenup was brought to the night before, Big Seth.
Wait, what?
I was at a wedding where a prenup was brought up the night before it was written up. Everything the night before. And a buddy of mine came to my room and he was not happy that she wouldn't sign it. I said, bro, what do you expect, dog? He said,
timing.
Like Chad said, the family's here. We're at remote. It's not even like it's a destination wedding too. Ain't like we just walked across the street to this shit.
It's a destination.
Wow.
Yeah, he thought he could get away with it.
That's a hostage situation at that point.
That question.
That was brilliant.
It wasn't me. It was somebody else. I'm good.
The night before. So did they?
I spent the whole day drafting that prenup.
Should have got it done sooner. Well, actually, that's a great segue into Sevach's question. It'll be the last question here in the legal.
Well, Laverne has a question too, real quick, Chad.
Oh, did Laverne? I missed. Where's Laverne?
Do you do any pro bono work?
Do you do any pro bono work?
Yeah, that's one of the things we're proud of. We're one of the top pro bono firms in the country. So we want to make sure that everybody has access to the legal system, which is one of the most powerful systems in the world. So even if you don't have the funds to pay us to take care of you, we will take care of you. Obviously, if you're rich like Chris, we're going to charge you double. But in all seriousness, we fight hard, and I have a pro bono coordinator, and I have a team that's just dedicated to providing pro bono services.
Awesome. Good stuff to know. Last question. Sevach fired off a few, but I thought this one was appropriate given the timing of that prenup attempt. But he asked, where is it? It was something about if there's a deadline. Okay, no trade clauses in the NFL are rare. Nope, that's not the one. Where's the deadline one? Throw it up there, Sevach. It was something about if there's a deadline and you get, if a team misses a roster bonus trigger by hours, is there any legal wiggle room? Is there any such thing as legal wiggle room?
So the only legal wiggle room, if you will, would be if there was a natural disaster or something like that occurred, something that truly is out of your hands. So we recently actually saw this enacted because of COVID. So there's a lot of contracts that have this language in there. And COVID was actually used to void a lot of contracts because obviously that was something completely out of our hands. There were government shutdowns, like actually government shutdown like there is right now. And things were just closed. So that actually got people out of contracts, and that got people out of blowing deadlines. So yeah, the short answer is yes, it can happen, but it's extremely, extremely rare.
Got it. Don't try and wiggle out of that thing, Sevach. Great stuff. That was the Van Horn Law Legal Zone. Appreciate all that. That was a great follow-up, Seth. Is legal wiggle room even a real thing? Thank you. Thank you very much. Worked hard on that one. Since we're talking about Van Horn Law Group, one of our amazing presenting partners here in the Fish Tank since Phase 4 started, I'm sitting here in the CasaBella Design Group studios. I also have to give a shout out to my man Alvaro Freitas, who is a podcaster himself. And if you're not listening to the Renovation Revolution podcast, you need to go ahead and follow it and give it 5 stars. It just cracked the top 100 podcasts in the United States in the how-to category. So shout out to Alvaro as well in CasaBella Design Group. We can't thank Van Horn Law and CasaBella Design Group enough for supporting the work that we do here in the Fish Tank and allowing Juice and I to be able to bring you everything that pops up in our heads creatively, or as Juice says, we can do whatever the bleep we want. So that's oh, I lost him. I lost the audio there too. I don't know what happened.
Say it, Big Seth.
Yeah, the irony of censoring yourself there.
Too funny. And then final question, I guess, rolling out of the legal zone, Mike Olivia wanted to know, Juice, did your friend end up getting married? Did they carry out the nuptials after that failed prenup attempt?
Hell yeah, I made him get married, man. I paid a lot for that trip.
Did you sign the damn prenup?
Hey, man, whatever, man. Y'all got to hold off on this shit.
Oh, well, man, this was a good one. This was an absolutely good one. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate you. My man, Andrew Krall here, who's been with us all night. Appreciate everybody who's been in the chat. I know some folks had to drop off, but it was a whole lot of fun. I'm hoping, and we had fun in dark times. We had fun. And maybe some people didn't stick around long enough. We were having too much fun, and they want to be in their misery. Let's see what happens against the Chargers. Tua's going to raise his game against Herbert. He answered the questions, I think, eloquently today about Herbert and the other quarterbacks in his class. Yep. But I got to believe if there's ever going to be a competitive fire burning, it's when he goes up against one of those guys. So we'll see what happens this weekend.
We need it every damn week, Big Seth. Fuck Herbert.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying that I think we're going to see the best version of Tua this weekend.
Hope you're right.
That's what I'm saying. Get us out of here, man.
Thanks, everybody, for diving in.